We will be starting shortly in about 5 minutes. Thank you for waiting. Good evening, one and all. I am Gayatri Pandit, your host for today, and on behalf of the TEDxGEC team, I welcome each one of you to the third edition of TEDxGEC Awakening. As all of you know, the theme of this series of events is Awakening. Awakening aims at bringing forth the topics that deserve attention but are often neglected or ignored. It is time we stop simply asking questions and contribute to the solution. Merely hoping for a better world isn't enough. It is time we understand the significance of taking action. Only if we act can we affect. At TEDxGC, we hope to ignite the spark of action to help affect our present and better our future. We hope to awaken your spirit for change. We want to bring forth the voices who heeded the awakening call in their respective fields and are now a catalyst for change. We want to share the voices of people who believe that their voice can be a voice of reason, a voice of change, a voice of awakening. Today, we have here with us marvelous speakers throwing light on topics which need to be addressed but are hardly spoken of. Voices which are here to awaken each one of us. Before we begin with our session today, let's have a look at the pillars who support our event. Our sponsors, Rajdhani Hotel, HL Nathurmal Marketing, our design and content partners, Motifos, Chinmay Samant Films and Photos. A few instructions before moving ahead. Keep yourself muted at all times to have the best experience. Queries can be asked in the chat only during the interaction session. Chat will be disabled at all other times during the event. Misbehavior during the event can lead to expulsion from the meeting. Let's begin this beautiful evening with a beautiful mindset. I would like to request our principal, Dr. Rajesh Lohani, to welcome the gathering.
A very good afternoon to all. At the outset, I welcome you all for the third edition of TEDxGC Awakening. I would like to congratulate the entire TEDxGC team for the successful conducting the event in spite of the difficulty faced during COVID-19. TEDx has been an integral part of GEC since 2013 with its torchbearer, Mr. Girish and Dr. Ganesh Hegde. With the value addition talks and discussion held over the years, which have translated fresh new ideas and critical thinking processes. It is a unique platform for the students of GEC to come in conversation with the great personalities of diversified field. I am a strong believer that student and staff should participate in such events, activities, and get benefited out of it. It really helps to expand our thinking process. My respect to all the eminent speakers and good wishes for the event. I am confident that at the end of the presentation, everybody will be fully satisfied. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your words of encouragement. Now, I request Professor Prasanna Kumar, our college faculty, to address the gathering.
Good afternoon, friends. I won't come between you and the program. I just briefly mentioned that it's a very nice platform to share ideas in which engineering or education is not just about engineering or technology. It's about making you worthwhile citizens, global citizens, to which we require so many growth in different aspects of life. So awakening, the theme, is nice. In other language, it's the same as evolution, adaptation, learning new things, making the best of the circumstances, for which we have every day is a new day in which you have to adapt newer ideas. And we are fortunate to have this platform under our strong leadership that we have this. I won't come, I won't take your time. It's this time today also we have three wonderful personalities sharing their ideas, and I hope we will be further enriched as the day passes by. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Now, without wasting any more time, let's move to the highlight of the event that you have been waiting for, the talks. Our first speaker today is Mr. Navtej Johar. Navtej sir is a dancer, choreographer, yoga exponent, somatic practitioner, scholar, and social activist. He has devised two pedagogical methods of embodied practice, namely the BARPS method to practice asana more effectively and Abhyas Somatics inspired by the Sukha and Rasa components of yoga and Indian poetics respectively. He holds the grand certification of 500 hours from the Yoga Alliance. A Sangeet Natak Academy awardee in contemporary choreography, he is a recipient of the Times of India Fellowship 1995, Charles Wallace Fellowship 1999, and a research fellowship at the Interweaving Performance Cultures International Research Center, Berlin. Johar sir is currently a faculty at Ashoka University, Sonipat. Without further ado, let's dive into the enchanting experiences that Mr. Navtej Johar has to share with us through his talk on the topic, Awakening of the Somatic Body.
I'm here today to talk to you about the body and the somatic body. In fact, the title of today's talk is Awakening the Somatic Body. But before we talk about the somatic body, we want to kind of make one distinction. And the distinction is that there is the body, and then there are ideas about the body. And the ideas about the body might not necessarily be friendly to the body. So this first distinction. And the ideas of the body, of course, are supported by various schools of idealisms or various types of idealisms. And these idealisms can vary from the moral body, which is morally ideal, and going all the way down to the cosmetic body. So in between everything, things like the productive body, the performative body, the gendered body, the one that performs the received duties, and which are very normative. So so that's one. But on the other hand, there are also these schools of what, for lack of a better word, could be called the materialists that rely upon the materiality of the body. And I'm going to be talking about the body as it's seen and viewed within these schools that rely upon, that have confidence in the body. And what do they have confidence in? They have the confidence in the body of its, first of all, confidence in the intelligence of the body, in the sensitivity of the body. And to realize that the body, as opposed to the idealists who think that the body is morally responsible, that the body is the one that will waylay you, I would counter that by the argument that the body is actually intuitive, sensitive, and morally supremely responsible. Not just responsible, supremely, because at the very lowest, at the subtlest level, the body, the instinct of the body is to self-preserve. And self-preserve not only physically, but even self-preserve spiritually, even ethically, responsibly. So what we're talking about here is the body, which can rely upon itself, its intelligence, its sensitivity, and the body which is made to feel as though on its own it is incomplete, it's unreliable, it's irresponsible, and it is immoral. Now, before the body comes, and so what is the somatic body? The somatics is the body, the sensory body from the inside, as how the body feels, responds, corresponds, or seeks correspondences to its sensory prompts that are part and parcel of its living being, its living organism, which is a very, very sensitive organism. So the body, listening to the body from the inside, as opposed to dictating upon the body from the outside, as per external ideals, is somatic. So the body that relies and listens to the prompts from within, as opposed to fulfills aesthetic norms, moral norms, ethical norms from the outside. Now, what is it that makes, okay, before I go any further, I want to say that the subcontinent, and perhaps this is the uniqueness of our subcontinent. Within our subcontinent, we, to this day, have retained a culture of the body. We do have a very strong and sound culture of the body, for the body, by the body, and a body within which the ideal remains within the body. So let me explain this, because for the idealists, the ideal of the body is external. But if we are looking at the body itself is enlightened. It doesn't need to go out. Sensitivity itself is enlightening. So it's like honing that sensitivity, distilling the materiality to a point of sensitivity, percolating that sensitivity for the body to yield knowledge, for the body to yield insights, for the body to yield enlightenment. So the ideal is within the body. And what is it that has historically kind of made the idea of the body kind of take over the body? And I would propose that historically, over the last, at least the last 2 centuries mainly, since the middle of the 19th century, the embodied practices of, say, yoga and tantra and even dance, which to some degree rely upon or adhere to the materialist body-centric practices, body-relying practices, have been slowly overtaken and swallowed by the idealist schools. And what happens is that the text becomes predominant. In the 19th century, as per the Protestant tenet, actually, which says, let's adhere practice to the original texts. Let's go back to the original texts. So it's the 19th century phenomena that suddenly yoga is aligned to the Yoga Sutras, or in the early 20th century, dance is aligned to the Natya Shastra. So suddenly text becomes predominant in a lived, embodied practice. At the cost of lived histories, at the cost of lived traditions, and at the cost of the lives of these practitioners who have, over the centuries, carried forward these practices. So the predominance of the text, as though the text is the last word. Then comes the predominance of form, as though the external form, be it the asana, or be it an adagu, or be it a shape, or be it a mudra, as though the external form is something to be aspired for, and the perfecting of the external form, as opposed to how the body kind of melts into that form. So the measurement of the form becomes externalized, imposed from the outside, as opposed to the body intuiting and melting and molding it from the inside. And so forth and so forth. And then, of course, this whole idea of moral correctness, that, the body has to be morally correct. We can't accommodate amoral or immoral bodies. And traditionally, what we have seen, the hereditary dancers, or the Hatha yogis, were, by the 19th century, considered to be either immoral or amoral, and thus not acceptable within these schools. So what a very, very big change that happens is that an embodied practice like yoga is brought under the umbrella of a doctrine, an idealist doctrine, that of, say, Vedanta. And there is no place of the body within Vedanta. In fact, Vedanta is body dismissive. For Vedanta, body is the obstacle in the path of enlightenment. So it is. So what happens to a body relying practice when it comes under the umbrella of a body dismissive doctrine? That means what happens to the body when it comes under the idea of the body in the path of enlightenment? So it is. So what happens to a body relying practice when it comes under the umbrella of a body dismissive doctrine? That means what happens to the body when it comes under the idea of the body, an idea which doesn't have confidence in the body. And that's what we are really struggling with today. And the somatic practice that I'm trying to engage with and trying to propose is a response to that. So somatics would be relying upon the body. And I'm not saying when I'm that the form or the word are not important. They are very, very important. I'm not saying that pedagogy is not important. It's very important. I'm not saying that discipline is not important. It's very important. But what we need to rely upon, what we need to kind of go into is that within the word and the body, there is always a gap. The word cannot fully express how I feel. How the body feels, the word can approximate, but there still remains a gap. And the embodied practice actually flourishes within that very gap, that very excess, which the word cannot express, the word cannot capture. The embodied practice, especially of dance, of abhinaya, it actually flourishes in that impossibility of expression. And yet, perhaps the only way it can be expressed is through the nuance of texture, through the nuance of movement, through the nuance of voice texture, through tone, but not through a word. But on the other hand, it is exactly the word that provokes it, that stimulates it, that contains it, that gives it a context. So I'm not saying that word is not important. Word is very important, but the gap between the word and the experience is more important. And that is the place of poetry, that is the place of nuance, that is the place of subtlety, that is the place where the sukshma, subtle experience resides. And that is the place of spirituality. Spirituality is not literal. The self cannot express itself literally. The self cannot express itself in a very linear, direct fashion. The expression of the self is indirect. And it can only be expressed through abstractions. And it can only be expressed by relying upon the sensory experiences happening in the moment and trying to give it form, that struggle of the body, which is trying to approximate its experience with a gesture, with a feeling, with a texture, is actually the living moment. The living moment of, say, art or in asana. So I'm talking about abhinaya at this point, that abhinaya is not a learned behavior. Abhinaya is delivering yourself in the moment and then seeing how the body will reveal, will divulge that words cannot express. So the body kind of exceeds the word, and the body must be allowed to exceed the word. Have the social and the social sanction to exceed the word, and that social sanction has been taken away by the correctness of form, by the imposition of text, which is in itself limited, and this whole moral correctness. Similarly, when it comes to asana, asana is not something that is kind of forced from the outside, a shape that is correct from the outside and must be adhered to and must be reached no matter what. Asana is something that you occupy. किया जाता है, आसना किया नहीं जाता, आसन धारण किया जाता है. और जब आसना धारण करते हैं तो आप उसको मतलब it's something that you wear upon the body. You kind of it's like getting into a new suit, so to speak. And you have to kind of really sense it from the inside. You have to sense its form from the inside. And of course, you want to be comfortable in that new suit. And what determines that comfort is your sensitivity. That may I be allowed to remain comfortable and sensory awake and sensitive And may I remain undisturbed for as long time so that I may be sensorially absorbed, not only in the shape, but whatever the shape is corresponding to. Again, I want to end by saying two things. That A, the body is not alone. And within the new form, within the new pedagogies that have been imposed upon us, the body has been rendered absolutely in solitude. The body is not alone. The body is in correspondence to something at any given point. There is something that I relate to even now as I sit. And that something is not God. I'm not saying something spiritual. There is something, I make my shape in correspondence to that. And the second point that I want to make after saying that the body is not alone, the second is that it's not about doing. We have become victims of doing, as though doing is it, as though work is worship. Aram haram hai, the wicked, practice till you become perfect, all those things. And I want to say that practice is not about doing, about perfecting. This is an imposition. Perfectionism is a modern. We have been tyrannized by form, by perfection. It's about seeing. It's not about doing. It is about seeing the sensory engagement of the body with the, which is a very tentative, tenacious doing. You know, when they say in yoga that the practice is, it's Abhyas Vairagya. So there is Vairagyam in it and there is Abhyas in it. There's ambition in it, but there's also a kind of a submission, a kind of a detachment to it. So it's very tenacious, but it's also very tentative. And it's like the just right moment within the practice. So what are we seeing? So when I'm practicing, what am I seeing? I'm not seeing, am I looking all right? I'm not looking at myself in the mirror to fulfill a form from the outside. That is crude, that is vulgar, that is violent. But I'm seeing how my body is responding sensorially to the prompts. And how am I awakening to this new possibility of being, to this new possibility of shape. And I can only experience that sensorially from the inside, from a place of autonomy and freedom where I am the maker of rules and I am the breaker of rules. There is no external imposition, because what I'm unearthing is the depth of sensitivity. I'm not trying to unearth God out of me, something that is external, that is superior than me. No, there is no sense of hierarchy of superiority or inferiority. I am superior enough. I am that already. And it's not an idea. It's a sensation. It's a frequency. And it's a frequency that I can only and only and only arrive at sensorially. There is no amount of ideation. There is no amount of intellectual engagement that will take me to that frequency. And I do it by sensing it and simultaneously seeing it. And by knowing that I'm not alone, that I am in engagement with something, and that thing already is part of that frequency. So I guess with that, I would like to end to say that the body is not alone and practice is not about doing. Please stop doing. It's about seeing. Tadadrishtu swarupe avasthanam. That's the Yoga Sutras.
Wow, that was indeed very motivational, sir. You have given us a new learning path in life. I'm sure you have ignited a spark in all of the attendees today. Now I request Mr. Navtej Johar, sir, to say a few words. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I just want to, you've heard what I had to say. So all I guess I need to say is thank you. I'd like to thank TEDxGEC for inviting me, for giving me this opportunity to share my, not my thoughts, so to speak, but my practice, because whatever I've said comes out of a practice. And yeah, I'd like to thank you very much. And thank you all for coming out this afternoon virtually to hear my views or my what I think about my practice. Yeah, thank you. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, sir. Audience, it's your time. Go ahead and ask any questions you have in the chat. Please do not unmute yourself.
So will somebody read these questions out to me, because I don't
Yes,
think
sir.
that I can.
Yes, I will be reading them out.
Sorry.
Okay, so the first question is from Gautami Honnavarkar. How can one understand and use their somatic body?
We are already in the somatic body. We are already sensitive sensorial beings. We are already embodied. We are in the body. All it is to stop feeling pressurized to deliver. Just halt. Allow yourself the permission to see the body, listen to the body, and that's all. So this word understand is not the most appropriate word when we're talking of the body. We don't want to understand the body. That's not my job of understanding. I want to tune into the body. I want to listen to the body. I want to be sensitive to the body. And sensitivity is not about understanding. Sensitivity is to tune in, to empathize, to put your finger on the pulse, so to speak. So I would say, give yourself a break. Actually, give yourself a break from understanding, from this whole idea of like as though understanding is what is required. There's no understanding that's required in this. You don't need to understand what you already have and are. But permission is. So permit yourself. I hope that answers something. Next, please.
Okay, thank you, sir. Tejasi Mangale. Are all the beliefs of the idealist schools wrong?
No. No. I mean, as I said, you see, the word is very important. Ideas are also very important, because we need something to harness, something to give us a frame of reference, something to give us a direction, something to allow us to concentrate in one particular way. So no, of course not. I'm not saying the idealism. It's just that the idealism that stands, that's whose agenda it is to put down the body. I'm resisting against that ambition of idealism. Let's also kind of make a distinction here that idealist schools, the philosophy of idealist schools is not the same as the ambition of idealist schools. So I'm against the ambition, and if the ambition of the idealist school is to kind of bulldoze the body, then I certainly say it's wrong. The ambition is wrong. But the philosophy of the idealist schools can be extremely profound, inspiring, and beautiful. So I'm not saying that idealism is wrong. I'm just saying body is equally important.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much for taking time out despite your busy schedule and gracing this event. It was lovely interacting with you and learning from you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And yeah, goodbye.
Thank you, sir. So we'll be moving forward. Our next speaker.
How do I cancel? How do I come out of it?
Just press end, sir. Our next speaker, Prathamesh Chari, is an upcoming tabla player and drummer hailing from Goa. A graduate in Sociology, Visharad in Tabla and Grade 8 in Drums, his unique style of performing tabla and drums has been widely appreciated. He has got guidance from renowned artists in India such as Lester Godino, Ravi Chari, Gino Banks, Mayank Bedekar, Amit Bhosle, a drummer for Brothers in Arms and a tabla player for Bad Blood. Our speaker is famous for his Indo-Western Jugalbandi performances. Prathamesh has performed in various prestigious musical concerts all over India as well as abroad, to name a few: IFI Goa, Sunshine Music Festival Wales, and many more. Let's give it up for Prathamesh Chari and his insights on the topic Rhythmic Evolution, Experiments with Indian Classical Music.
Hi, Prathamesh here, the tabla player and drummer for Brothers in Arms, Bad Blood, Ravi Chari's Sitar Symphony, accompanying and playing with renowned artists in India, such as Pandit Ravi Chari, Malin D'Souza, Chandana Bala, Gino Banks, Mohini De, Sangeet Haldipur, Sheldon De Silva, to name a few. So in this session, I'll be taking you through my musical journey. I come from a family with a musical background where my grandfather, late Pandit Prabhakar Chari ji, was a tabla maestro. My uncle Pandit Ravi Chari, he's a sitar maestro, and my mother Smita Chari, she's a Kathak dancer. Firstly, I thank God and my parents for being my backbone, supportive, and always there for me. Tabla, I started at the age of 6 and took it seriously at the age of 8. And I learned tabla under the guidance of late Pandit Marti Kodikar sir, Amit Bhosle sir, and Shailesh Gaonkar sir. Right now, I am taking the training under the guidance of Shri Mayank Bedekar sir. In 2008, there was a concert in Goa, and I saw my uncle playing his masterpiece composition called Yogi, and Gino played his powerful drum solo. Seeing that musical performance inspired me to learn drums. So my father arranged a drum master, Mr. Jogi Menezes. I also took lessons from Glenn Pinto sir and Assumption sir. Right now, I am very fortunate to take the training under Sir Lester Godino's guidance in Goa and Gino Banks in Mumbai. I also received guidance from my uncle Pandit Ravindra Chari, where I learned Padant from him and many more things. Once again, a big thanks to my uncle Ravi Chari ji and Gino Banks sir for inspiring me a lot. Thank you. Besides music, I've done my Bachelor of Arts in Sociology from Parvatibai Chogle College of Arts and Science, Margao, Goa. I have performed various concerts and prestigious music festivals in India and abroad too. UK Goa Festival in London, Sunshine Music Festival in Wales, Nakshatrotsav, Kalakshetra, Pandit Prabhakar Chari Pratishthan, Indian Jazz Fusion, Pulak Kala Mahotsav, International Film Festival of India, Rock in Goa, Nobel Prize Series, India, Goa Food and Cultural Festival, to name a few. According to me, music is one. It has no boundaries and barriers. No matter what language, genre, rhythm, it can find a way to everyone's heart. Music can transcend all borders and bring everyone together. We need to blend Indian classical music with other genres of music. But when we combine Indian music with different genres, new music style is created, new concepts and new ideas are formed. I feel there is so much in Indian classical music. The music around the world, irrespective of the geographical area, it can be interpreted in Indian way. It's both adaptable and adaptable. Like musicians from Western countries, they come to India, they learn Indian classical music, and they incorporate that Indian classical with their respective genres. And like I said, when Indian classical is combined with the other genres of music, new style is created, new ideas and new concepts are formed. Indian and Western music both have similar concepts. Indian has a rich concept of rhythm structures. In Western drums or percussion, there's a similar concept. I heard my masters say that there are great legends in India where they recite more than two tals on their hands and their feet. Like in one hand they recite 3 tal, 16 beats, jog tal, 10 beats, 8 tal, 12 beats, and they recite together simultaneously. And in Western, we have a concept of polyrhythm where we play 2 or more than 2 different time signatures together. Having learned tabla, it was easy to me to understand the different time signatures and complex musical pieces on the drum kit. One day I tried to play some tabla words like ha, tirakita, titakata gadibana on the kit. So I tried incorporating tabla sound on the drum kit, which I exhibited at the football final ceremony show in my hometown. A big thanks to Mr. Ramros Salis. He's a very good friend of my father. He gave me the opportunity to perform there, and that was my first tabla and drum solo. It was in 2009, I guess. Yeah, 2009. And I also performed this tabla and drum solo at the Nashte Utsav musical concert, which was organized by Kala Academy, Goa. I also got the chance to perform Indian tabla drum solo at the prestigious International Film Festival of India 2012. A big thanks to late Vishnu Suryavak for the opportunity. Listening to Pandit Tilak Guruji's music and his albums like Kathak, Massical inspired me to explore more Indian styles and more Indian elements on the drum kit. And also to explore more African grooves, African styles, world music on tabla. I grew up listening to tabla legends and their powerful tabla solos, which inspired me a lot. And I wondered why not play a full length tabla solo on the drum kit along with the nagma. So I tried playing on the peshkar and peshkar bandish and all traditional compositions, tabla compositions on the drum kit, and it worked out very well. And I got the chance to perform this Indian classical drum solo at the Guru Purnima celebrations in front of my masters. Coming to the band Bad Blood, where I play tabla and percussion. It's a rock band, but we play rock with Indian elements, where we play songs based on rags. We use a lot of Indian gimmicks. We play heavy Indian rhythms, and we have introduced our language Konkani in rock, thus creating Konkani rock genre. Like I said, when we introduce or when we blend Indian classical with other genres, new style is created and new genre, new ideas are formed. A big thanks to Mr. Nixon Suarez and Mr. Orville Rodriguez for making me the member of this amazing rock band Bad Blood. Thank you. In music, I have done my Visharad Pratham in tabla and grade 8 from Trinity College of London in drums. People ask me what I would like to say to the future generation. Maybe I can say something from what I was taught. Be passionate, be dedicated to whatever you do, be honest, work hard, stay healthy, be creative, and always be a learner. I want to thank TEDxGEC for inviting me as a speaker, performer, and letting me use this platform to showcase my talent and encourage the blending of Indian classical music and Western music. To wrap up my session, I'll be playing some Western touch and some chapradas, tukdas, bandishes, traditional compositions on tabla and drums in Judlai Tal Din Tal. Happy listening. Thank you.
Does everyone still feel the vibrations from that amazing performance? That was really refreshing and inspiring, Prathamesh. Those beats really helped us understand the power of music and your beautiful musical journey. Thank you so much. I would
Thank
like to request you to address the audience now. The stage is all yours.
uh, firstly, can you hear me? Hello,
Yes,
check.
we can.
Yeah. So, firstly, I thank TEDxGEC for inviting me as a speaker and a performer, and letting me use this platform to showcase my talent and to understand the blending of Indian classical music and Western music together. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Prathamesh. It's time for some questions. Audience, the chat is now enabled. Please keep yourself muted to maintain the decorum of the event. Shoot out your questions for the speaker. Okay, so
No,
Vidal De Costa has said very enjoyable and soulful performance.
thank
Vineet
you.
Egel asks, what do you think in future will Indian classical be pursued in its purest form or as Indo-Western or other new forms?
Okay. So in future, will Indian classical will be pursued in its purest form or as a Indo-Western or other new forms? So it all depends on what music is coming, because uh, the music is becoming modern day by day. Uh, like a fresh example can be this pandemic, where a lot of new music is formed, and like I said, the blending of Indian classical music with the Western. So if we blend together, new music will form, and if the music is showcased with the purest form, then it will remain the same. Yeah.
Okay. Simran Sirsat asks, do you have any advice for young musicians who are just getting into this field? Any recommendations for music or artists they can listen to for inspiration?
Yeah. So my advice is, be honest with your be honest and be dedicated with whatever you do. Be dedicated in sense, like if you're in music, then be dedicated with the music, and respect the music, respect the artist, and listen to a lot of music. Yeah. Thank you.
Also, recommendations of music or
Yeah.
artists that they can listen to.
Okay, the recommendation for music artists, like if 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 you're, if you want to learn tabla, you can also you can listen to Ustad Zakir Hussain, Ustad Fazil Qureshi ji, Ustad Tawfiq Qureshi ji, Pandit Yogesh Samshi ji. Or if you want to pursue something in piano, then you can listen to Chick Corea, Louis Banks, so from Bombay, drums, Gino Banks, Dave Weckel, Ranjit Barut. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Vidal Da Costa has two questions. We'll take it by turn. Were
Yeah.
there any obstacles during your musical journey or any complex pieces which you couldn't play before but which you've overcome and have mastered now?
Actually, there were no any obstacles, because I used to practice regularly, daily, and also I used to attend my classes regularly, and listen to a lot of music, lot of complex music pieces, and by listening to it, for me it was easy to understand, and like I said, in my video, tabla helped me to understand complex pieces. So yeah, thanks.
Okay, the next part is apart from rock and Indian Konkani fusion, you spoke about what other blends or fusion pieces do you see yourself experimenting with in the future?
Jazz fusion, then Indo jazz fusion. There is the Indian classical music with the jazz music, then world music, Latin. That there is the music comes from Latin America. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, the next question, Benito Coutinho asks, if you could change one thing about this industry, what would it be?
Change. Change. One thing is like um, actually there's nothing to be changed as such. Yeah.
It's okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, so next is Videsh Padyaras. Some feel due to
Yeah.
blending depth in the pure forms of music is lost. What do you feel?
That some feel.
The pure forms of music is lost due to the blending of two different genres. So what do you feel about that?
Okay, so like what feel as such?
He's asking you due to fusion of two different forms, the pure forms of both the music will be lost. So what do you feel about that? Is it lost
so,
or not?
no, like we have to preserve the music and the pure form of the music. If we preserve, then it won't be lost. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prathamesh. That was really wonderful.
Thank you.
Let's move on. Now we have Dr. Rajay Pawar, aptly called Man of Letters, HOD of Konkani Department at Government College of Kepen, member of Executive Board of West Zone Cultural Center and member of General Body of ESG. Throughout his career, Dr. Pawar has worked towards enhancing and protecting the Konkani language and its vast literature. He has been awarded doctorate for his thesis on Reflections of Goan Society in Konkani Poetry, which is the first ever doctoral study done on Konkani poetry. Dr. Rajay Pawar has authored 11 books in Konkani in different genres. His book titled Saim Ani Rukmaro is the first ever 3D book in the Konkani language. He is a recipient of the National Literary Awards of Bharatiya Bhasha Parishad Kolkata and Kavita Trust Mangalore. He is also a recipient of State Literary Awards of Konkani Bhasha Mandal, Goa Konkani Academy, Directorate of Art and Culture, Government of Goa, and a few others. Let us now hear Dr. Pawar's insight on the topic, Role of Language in Conservation of Culture.
Hello friends, so topic for the discussion is a role of language in conserving local culture. what we all need to understand is what the culture means and what language has to do with this culture. Most of the people think that language in no way is connected with the local culture. The local language, how can it be connected with the culture? Because culture means we speak about those things what we have inherited from our older generation, and language is just for the we can use it as a medium of communication. So today I am going to stress on the language and its role in conservation of culture. We all should know that there are different languages and there are different dialects as per those languages. We know that at least in India, we have several languages and several cultures, actually more known as a language laboratory. Whereas the other nations, they don't have this much of variety with respect to culture and language as well. We have Assami, Gujarati, Punjabi, Hindi, Konkani, all those languages. We also do speak English in India and few other languages like Portuguese and Spanish. We need to understand that why language is more important in conservation of culture. What does culture mean? Culture means the things that are inherited, the things that those have been preserved from decades, from centuries. It deals with food, it deals with clothing style, it deals with the folk dances and folk songs and folk dramas and other things. Friends, the dialectal differences exist for many popular languages because of the cultural impact that we need to understand. See, French spoken in France is different from Canadian French. Likewise, many languages have different regional dialects. In India also, we do have different languages and different culture. So the cultural impact is such that we tend to get different types of dialects, and those dialects, they differ from culture to culture. It's a way of life. The culture means the way of life wherein we deal with the different types of thoughts, different types of behaviors, different types of lifestyles. Which came first, language or culture? We most of the time think that maybe culture, because it's an integral part of the human life. But you need to understand that language is the integral part in the establishment of any culture. See, communication is the basic human need that we know, because human being cannot exist without communication. And hence, obviously, the language came first because they communicated and then the culture got developed. So this communication means a person wanted to express his emotions, express his thoughts, and then the emotions, those thoughts, the way of life was the culture what we know as. But it was communicated with the help of language. Language only does not mean literature or letters or alphabets or words or syntaxes. It is the main source and the essence of the culture. Language, we should know that it's a source as well as the essence of the culture. Friends, out of over 7,000 languages, only 200 languages currently exist in both the formats, spoken and written. So why only 200 languages are surviving or existing? It is because idea behind the existence of the relation of language with the culture may not be understood by those speakers. For instance, the Konkani language that we use today is way different from the old Konkani. So we are not talking about the Konkani which was spoken some 1,000 years back. And language, according to the as it changes from culture to culture, language also changes from the old era to new era, the old age to new age. Similarly, between the language and culture, the similarity between both of them is both are changing continuously. Language also change continuously, and so do the culture. Understand that it is not the communication only as a main role played by language, but across our culture, it takes or along with the decades to decades, through language, our culture is passed on. See, we need to understand that there are three major wheels: language, communication, and culture. Both of them are all three are interrelated. Every wheel is attached to the other. So if one gets stuck, then the other will not move. That's the main reason why only 200 plus languages are existing today. So we need to understand that language not only communicates, but it also enhances, it also conserves our culture. So communication is the major role played by language, but then language also conserve or help in conservation of the culture. We need to learn that if we need to learn a different language or a foreign language, then we should understand that we also need to learn the particular regional culture, and that too we have to learn it first, so that learning of the language becomes more easier. If we are not ready to learn the culture, the regional culture or the local culture, then we will not be able to learn the language in total. The understanding of a culture can greatly help in learning any different or foreign language. So this understanding of the culture goes with the language. See, language and culture both are so much related that if we imagine that this left hand is a language and my right hand is culture, then language gives something to the culture. So at times the roles are exchanged. Culture sometimes give certain things to language, and in this way, in this manner, both of them, language and the culture, gets conserved and gets developed. So let us take example with respect to the local culture, that is of Goa, and with respect to the Konkani language. See, we know that you must have heard that Goan folk culture, it includes Fugdi, those are the dance forms, folk dances, Godamoni, Gof, Maid, Virabhadra, Zagor, etc. See, Virabhadra, if you need to understand, you should understand that Virabhadra is basically a dance form where Lord Shiva is praised, and the dance form was brought to this land by Karnataka, the king of Karnataka of that time. The Kadambas dynasty, when the Kadamba dynasty was ruling in Goa, that time this Virabhadra entered in this Goan land. Today, Virabhadra is so much played by all the particular Goans at particular places. It's not played everywhere in the Goa, but then at least in the major part of the Goa, this Virabhadra is played. And if you listen to the Virabhadra, what the hymns those are pronounced that time, the words those are uttered, you will not understand the meaning of it because those are not in Kokan. They say Virabhadranna Haudu Haudu, Kailas Valge Haudu Haudu. So these are Kannada lines. So in Kannada language, they are praising Lord Shiva. They say Virabhadranna, Anna, this particular word is now today used in certain dialects of the Kokani, wherein to the elderly person we say Anna, Virabhadranna. Haudu Haudu means in Kokani we say, oh yes, yes, hi, Saiba. Kailas Varge, the one who is staying in Kailas Parvat. So Kailas Varge, Haudu. But this particular dance form, folk dance form, is played by Goans, those who speak Kokani at home, but they don't know Kannada language. So once now what the thing I'm stressing on is, if we don't know the language, particular language with respect to the Virabhadra, we will not be able to understand what the Virabhadra is and what is the historical relevance of Virabhadra or its connection with the Kadamba dynasty. So if we understand certain Goan festivals, we look Shigmo, Carnival, Chavat, Natla, Jatra, Kalo, Fest, several other Goan festivals are there. If we need to understand those festivals, we need to understand the language in which those festivals are conducted, or the hymns or the poetic part of the presentation. If it is in Kokani language, we need to understand the Kokani language, then only we will be able to understand the culture. Now, the problem with today's generation is they are least bothered about I'm not generalizing the statement, but then most of the today's generation, they are not bothered so much about the local language. At least in Goa, the today's generation, they are more attracted towards the foreign languages or other than the all Indian languages. Basically, they are more attracted towards English, and that's the need of the hour also. But that does not mean that they should give up the local language or their own mother tongue. The importance of the language is to understand their own culture. If one particular time, if they are staying in abroad, maybe in America or New Zealand, if they come down to their native place, then if they want to understand the culture of their native part or the native region, then they need to understand the local language also, because both the things are interrelated, interconnected and interdependent. So culture gives some things to the language, language adds something to the culture, and if we are not bothered about the local language, then we will not be able to understand the culture. So now, in the last few years, what we have noticed is people are again coming to their roots. They want to understand their culture. They want to understand the culture of their native place, but they are not more attracted towards the language. They speak English language or any other language, but then they should understand that without knowing the local language, they will not be able to understand in totality the culture of their native region. Let us take some more example regarding how the language plays important role in the conservation of the culture. Culture does not mean only folk dance or folk literature. It also means our food culture. It also means the names of our places, the anthropology of the localites. They also need to understand that folk, it is about our dress culture also. See, in Goa, there is one dance form, in that particular dance form, a particular clothing style is maintained. and that is those ladies, they wear the sari and the knot is exactly above the shoulder, and that is known as detli. The dressing of that particular sari is known as detli. Now, this particular detli word is also used in several poems, several other prose literature, but the person who is unaware about the detli word will not be able to understand the exact meaning and the culture of with respect to that region. See, we have several Goan places wherein the names are distorted. You people must be aware about the famous railway station in Goa that is known as in the today's language it is Karambolim. But the actual name of the place is not Karambolim but Karmali. Karamali. Karmali. The Karambolim is the distorted version. So now, if we need to understand certain things, see, this Karmali name is still pronounced as Karmali in few surnames. For example, Karmalkar. A person with the name, let us say Rajay Kalmarkar. So he will not write Rajay Karambolimkar. Kar stands for the person of that particular place who owes certain thing. So Karmalkar, he will write Karmali there, but then below that name, when he need to write the address, he will write Rajay Karmalkar, Karambolim, Goa. So this is the distorted form. So now words gets distorted, and once the words are distorted, automatically it affects the syntax of the language, and hence the language gets distorted and it gets detached from the roots which are connected to the culture. There is a proverb, one proverb in Kokani, it is Shenille Gorun Karmadecha Talya. In this particular proverb, the word Karmadecha Talya, it means lost cattle will be found at Karmali Lake. The Karmali is the place, and there is a lake, it's close to the railway station. Whenever you visit Karmali, in today's pronunciation, it is Karamboli railway station. So there is a lake, and the same lake is referred as the largest lake in our province. So we need to understand the historical reference, we need to understand certain etymology of the name, then we have to understand the relation between language and culture. So language will automatically conserve the culture. Etymology will lead us to anthropology. See, in Kokani we say Janto and Nanto. These words are used for old-aged person, we call Janto, and young-aged person, we call Nanto. But then Janto, the etymology says that Janto means Janato, that means the one who knows, and Nanto means Nanato, one who does not know. These are referred to the knowledge part, but in today's usage, it is referred to the age part. We say Mataro and Tarnato. Instead of saying Matara and Tarnato, we call Janto and Nanto. So this is the etymological part. We need to understand the local folk, local food, local dressing, local animals, local deities, and local ecosystem, local festivals, local customs. All those things we need to understand with the help of language only. So my dear friends, language is an effective expression and transmission of the culture. Ken Hale, linguist, he says if a language is lost, a part of the culture is lost. So we have to respect the language and then conserve. Automatically the culture will get conserved. Summing up, I will say, since language and culture are inseparable and interdependent, language plays a very crucial role in the conservation of local culture. I hope you people must have understood the relation and importance of the language with the culture. Do speak your native language, do worry about your language, and do preserve your culture with the help of language. Goodbye.
What an eye-opening thought. Conserving our deep and vast literature and other traditions passed down from generations that contains valuable knowledge is the need of the hour today. Hearing your experiences and thoughts will pave the way, sir. Now, I request Dr. Pawar to share a few thoughts with the audience. I request you to turn on your camera and share your video with us.
Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. First and foremost, I wish to thank the TEDxGEC team for inviting me to this beautiful, popular platform and to share my thoughts with regard to language and culture. Despite of the restrictions to have a larger gathering, you made it possible, at least virtually. So thank you, TEDxGEC team. I will love to answer certain queries.
Thank you, sir. Audience, it's your time again. Go ahead and ask your questions and queries in the chat. Please keep yourself muted. We have Tejas Revankar asking how to preserve a language like Konkani, which has different lipi and different cultures associated with it, and how difficult will it be to preserve them without losing their uniqueness?
Yeah. The very first thing is the lipi is only used as a to express the language in the written format. So language only does not mean it should be in a written form. The more it should be in the spoken and the audio format. Lipi we can overcome with the new apps we have. We can transliterate also. I have a this app on my laptop wherein I can second transcript it from Kannada script to Devanagari, from Devanagari to Malayalam script, any other script. So language and script, see, it's like the script is the outer look, and that too in a written format. So we should be more worried about the oral part of it, the oral, the preservation in the oral format. And then your question was followed by the different types of culture with respect to maybe dialects. See, language, at least with respect to Konkani, Dr. Manohar Sardesai nicely has put it in a word that he said that history of Goa created geography of Goa, because Goans, because of this history, moved from Goa to the present Goa to the Mangalore part of Karnataka, or a certain Kochi part of and other part of Kerala. And hence the people who moved over there, they certainly moved because they had a unique culture and unique language. They preserved their language, but then they also had to learn the local language of that particular region. So they had to learn Malayalam script or Kannada script, and obviously they started writing their own language in that particular script, which they were well versed with. So that does not mean that language got distorted. So it's another form of dialect, but they have preserved their culture. Whenever you visit any Konkani people of Mangalore, I have been frequently visiting over there, and I found that still, even in the Catholic community, use of Patravadi, use of Keli Champa, everything is still preserved. So we should more worry about the oral format of the language rather than the written format with respect to script. I think I have cleared your doubt.
Yes, sir. Next question. Varun Naik asks, what is your view on school teaching medium in your mother tongue or local language?
With respect to, it's a little bit political type of question, but I will certainly share my thought. See, if we need, there are two things: education in your mother tongue and education in the state language. The education in the primary school in Karnataka or Gujarat or Punjab or any part of India is mostly in the state language of that particular state. Whereas here we think that state language is different and mother tongue is different, because we have, see, Goa became state much later. Earlier it was territory, united territories, a cluster of Goa, Daman and Diu. And you know that Daman and Diu, most of the localites will speak Gujarati. That's how many Gujaratis still are Goan to that sort. So these Gujaratis staying in Goa will think in Gujarati language since it is their mother tongue. But in market, they will, in market or any other places, they will be speaking in fluently, that too in Konkani. But then once the your thinking process changes, and a child of a Gujarati person has to learn in Konkani language, a child of a Kannada person has to learn in Konkani language with respect to the mother tongue, then we are not doing justice. But if it is a state language, then there is a norm. You once become a part of the state, you need to understand the importance of the state language. But at home, as a parent, we can explain, we can provide them tuition, or we ourselves can become tutor and explain them all the content of the textbooks in their own mother tongue. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Vineet Egal asks, what according to you are other factors other than language responsible for dying culture?
Basically, attraction towards foreign culture. Foreign culture, that does not mean non-Indian culture. Foreign culture is which is not your culture. So there is a tendency at one particular age, we tend to get attracted towards several things like music and all the since music also is a part of culture. So we tend to get attracted towards the foreign culture. There is not much worry about this, but the problem arises when if we get detached from our own culture, then there is no point in understanding others' culture. See, this is also with respect to mother tongue. We need to respect all the languages, all the mother tongues, but not at the cost of your own mother tongue. Similarly, we need to understand the other cultures also, but not at the cost of your own culture. So this is the main thought, primary thought that needs to be taught to the younger generation, and hence the culture will be conserved.
Okay, sir. We have Videsh Padyar and Tanmay Pereira Naik asking a similar question. There is no dictionary for Konkani online like for other languages. So how can we work to change this? And the other is, how can engineers, especially software engineers, possibly work towards preservation of Konkani, since you mentioned the transliteration tool?
Yeah, I think your question carries the answer. Basically, the language is considered as a lookout of those who take admission in arts, the two who will opt language at the final year. And if they opt for Konkani language in the final year, then the Konkani language is their worry or their subject or their part of study. What engineers or what doctors have to do with the language? But that's not the correct thing. We need to understand that everyone has a role to play with respect to language. See, I know my one of my best friend, Dr. Dayanand Rao. He's a gynecologist in GMC, but he do contribute in Konkani language. He writes about gynecology. He writes about other creative part also as a literature in Konkani. I know Dr. Dayanand Rao, he has contributed. Our friend late Mr. Sridhar Kamath, being engineer, he contributed to Konkani language. So being this platform itself is a TEDxGEC, I think a person in computer science, a person in any other faculty should contribute to this language because they themselves are Konkani speaking person. Of course, with respect to the certain terminology, they will have to find a synonym or they need to design a separate, or they need to coin a word. In that case, they can very well get associated with the Konkani professors or Konkani translators or Goa University's Konkani department or Government College Cape's Konkani department. Both of us can come together and find a solution.
Okay, sir. Deepraj Bhosle asks, thank you, sir, for sharing us your views on preservation of our culture. My question to you is, how can people who work outside Goa or India preserve their culture? What would you suggest?
I think they are already preserving their culture, most of them. And that's how a certain group of people, they come together and they form a club, they form a society, and every year, annually, they perform certain programs wherein they stage certain cultural programs. That is the one way to preserve our culture. But they also should know that at home, wherever they stay, whichever part of the globe, they need to preserve the language at least within the four walls of their house where they stay. Otherwise, they will just enact the dance form or the any other form, but they will not be able to feel and they will not be able to get attached towards the culture. So the relation between language and the culture, they need to preserve language also, and they need to preserve culture also.
So Vineet Egal asks, what do you think will be the status of Goan culture 10 years down the line?
This is a bit a tricky question. I don't know the future because see, the generations during my time and the generation today has changed a lot with respect to art, with respect to writing literature, and they have contributed to language also, and they have contributed to culture also. But then few of them have get detached from the language and so also from the culture. With this particular ratio, I don't know exactly what will be the future with respect to language and culture after a decade. I don't know really, but it's a nice thing to think on, and I understand your worry.
So I would also like to ask you, how would you suggest to change the mindset of a younger generation towards our culture?
See, there is one Divya Naik, you must have heard. She performs on stage. She's a good singer, and she, not being into creative literature or arts faculty, still preserves culture in the modern form. She plays dhalo on stage. Similarly, we can have, see, in Marathi there is a group, I don't know the exact name, but then they have you can just search on YouTube,
Yes, you are audible now, sir. There was a lag. Hello, sir. Yes, sir.
yeah. See, new generation can design certain things with respect to culture or language in a newly designed, just for the sake of the performance, but that will get the attention of those who are already on the other track of getting uprooted. So they will get attracted towards this, so we need to attract them first. So these types of experiments needs to be performed. In Marathi, I have seen the Abhang Rewind, wherein a new group, they will perform the abhangas written by Jnaneshwar, Tukaram, and all other saints with the help of the new music, new style of music. Similarly, in Hindi, there is a Kabir Cafe. So they perform the dohas of Kabir. See, the Kabir, if you read, it's a highly philosophical form of poetry. But these youth, they perform and they also explain. So whoever have got those talent of singing or performing should seek the attention of these the people who are uh, getting detached from the culture. So we need to make some experiments.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. We look up to you as an inspiration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. Now, I would like to call upon our organizer, Rushabh Wadkar, to voice the vote of thanks.
Hi, hi friends. I'm really glad that I'm expressing my word of gratitude for the third time in our online series of online events. First and foremost, I'd like to thank all three speakers for their time, dedication, and making this virtual event, which seemed impossible at a certain point of time, making it a grand success. Following that, I would definitely thank our principal and our faculty advisor, Dr. Ganesh Hegde, who has always supported us and encouraged us to make this possible. I would like to thank my whole team and especially the team who took care of today's event, for they have done an amazing job. The today's event, a majority of the tasks were handled by the next generation, and I'm happy that today's event went so smooth. So we have faith that this is not going to die off. We'll definitely have a better generation, hopefully offline event in the next year. And finally, definitely I would thank all the attendees for making this event possible. You are the essence of the event, especially all the people who asked questions, got involved in the interactive session. Thank you so much, and we will continue to serve you, and your encouragement and your support is what is keeping TEDxGEC going. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day.
Thank you, Rushabh. I thank all of you for being with us today. We hope to see you all at our next event with the same enthusiasm. Stay safe. Signing off for today. Thank you.